it's Grady at Twin Creek Audio, and in this video I'm going to talk about and show you some of the ways that I've demonstrated analog recording equipment in a lot of my videos here on the channel. It's a lot different than just doing a screen capture with a DAW program and then capturing your voice mic simultaneously. So let's get into some of the techniques I've used here on the channel to demonstrate things like the analog mixing console or analog compressors. I'm going to explain the biggest one first, and that's how to demonstrate an analog mixing console. At least that's how I do it when I'm using the Soundcraft Sapphire in a lot of my hybrid mixing videos. This technique involves using more than one DAW and more than one interface. In my case, I have my main interfaces that have 24 individual outputs connected to the console back here. And then the console master outputs are connected to the inputs of a different audio interface that's connected to a completely different DAW. That way I can play back things on the main DAW through the console, demonstrate hybrid mixing or analog equipment using the console inserts and auxiliary sends, and I can capture the output of the console independently with the other DAW. That means I can start and stop playback on the main DAW that I'm playing back the music from, and it does not affect what's being recorded because that's on a completely separate system. That's one of the main ways I get around some of the issues that you may have if you're trying to make a video demonstrating an analog console. So in those situations, I have the 24 individual outputs from my main audio interfaces routed to the tape returns on the mixing console back here. And then the outputs of the mixing console are going to inputs on a different audio interface and a completely separate DAW. In this case, I have a MacBook Pro over here, while the main system is behind me, and that's a PC with the two screens above the console there. In addition to the need for a separate interface and separate DAW setup to capture the output of the console, it's also useful to have different outputs from the console that you capture. The main two things I use from my main console outputs are either the main mix outputs or I'll use the control room outputs because my patch bay has a split for my control room monitors. So I'll patch the main mix out if I don't want the audio to follow the solos on the console because the main mix on my console is not affected by the solo buttons. That's not always a great way to demonstrate things because I'd like to be able to solo things on my console. So in those cases, I'll take the split from the control room monitor outputs and send those to the separate DAW interface to record. So a lot of times during my mixing videos on hybrid mixing, I'm actually recording the control room outputs of the big console the entire time. I'll also have a voice mic connected to the separate DAW that's recording the output of the console so that I can, talk while I'm doing the mixing videos and talk about what I'm doing. So I'll have a separate track for the voice mic, and then I'll have a track with the stereo outputs of either the main mix out or the control room outputs all being recorded simultaneously on a separate DAW. So the idea here is all of the tracks there in the DAW are going to individual outputs on my audio interfaces. Those outputs of the audio interfaces come up to these channels on the console. On my console, these are the tape returns or monitor channels. These smaller ones are actually for sending to tape or recording, so we're ignoring those right now. So all of my individual tracks there in the DAW are routed through individual outputs through the console channels. At least in my case, the first 24 here come from the DAW. Over here is tape machines and other stuff. So right here, and then those are combined together and go to the master. Then what I'll do is record the master output of the console or the control room output of the console to a separate DAW. That way I have independent stop, pause, play, whatever over here on this DAW when I'm demonstrating things. So I can play back sections of the song, I can speak, do the voiceover track, describe what I'm doing here, and it's completely independent of what's being recorded over there that's not on camera. I can swing that around to show you what's recording. I'm actually recording my voice on the second rig right now, just like I would do if I was demonstrating the console or a mixing video. So I'm recording my voice on the separate rig right now as well. So I'll swing around and show you that. It's just a separate audio interface and then a separate DAW, another version of Reaper. In this case, it's on a MacBook. Let's swing the camera around. So we're going to go over here, and then we can see that there's the other DAW recording my voice. And normally you would have another track below that that's recording the output of the console as well. So after the fact, when I record a voice track and then the separate track with the output of the console, either the master out itself or the control room output, I'll go into Reaper and I'll edit those tracks and then send that final file out, and then that file syncs with the video. Because it contains my voice and the output of the console, the camera is picking that up from the studio monitors so that I can use the audio to sync the video. We're looking at one of my projects here, and you can see I have a voice track and then the mix track, which this was the output of the mixing console. And so I've kind of done some of this so you can see what's going on the voice track. Ignore these two sections, those are separate. But this is the main voice track and this is the mix track from the console. You can see I've gone through here, and when an example is playing through the console, I've gone in here and edited this and turned this all the way down. So that clip is off. I've done that here and here and here as well. I've also gone in and deleted or turned down the sections from the console where I'm speaking, just in case there's any noise there. Usually there's not, so this isn't as important as the voice track because this will have bleed from the studio monitor. So it's very important to turn this down. And I do all of this before I do any kind of processing. And I will sometimes use a compressor on my voice mic, but that's just for the dialogue part. I'm not ever processing anything here that's been printed back from analog equipment. So all these videos do remain pretty transparent and honest as far as that goes. The only compression going on is what I show on screen or what the YouTube algorithm does to the audio. So a lot of my videos have more than one project involved. We'll have the main project that's being played back through the console, and then I'll have another audio project in Reaper that contains the playback from the console and my voice track. All of those things are required to make some of the videos that I make here on the channel. My console has insert switches. I can turn the insert on and off, so I'll use the console to demonstrate a lot of rack equipment because of the ability to A/B the signal with the single button on the channel strip on the console. Other times I'll use this next technique. Since Reaper is my main DAW, I use ReaInsert whenever I want to use an external piece of analog hardware. In ReaInsert, I set up the send to one of the audio interface outputs. Then I set up the receive to one of the audio interface inputs. In my studio, those are accessed on the patch bay from the tape send and return jacks. And so you can see I've got those patched to my Symmetrix 501 analog rack compressor. And here's what that looks like and sounds like. You also have some settings for latency and your insert input and output levels. Using this technique, I can demonstrate a piece of analog outboard gear without any coloration from the console. Well, I hope you found this video interesting and at least somewhat informative if you plan on making videos demonstrating analog audio equipment. Make sure to check the links in the video description for other videos that relate to this video, as well as links that help support this channel. Also, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the Twin Creek Audio YouTube channel if you have not done so already. I really appreciate everyone for watching my videos. I hope you all have a happy holiday week, as well as everyone having a wonderful day, night, evening, weekend, weekday, hour, minute, second, nanosecond, whatever it is you're having. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.